Good afternoon. My name is Chris Konetsky, and I'm the group publisher here at Business Publications Corporation, which publishes the Business Record. Welcome to our final Project 515 of 2023, which is being brought to you today by our presenting sponsor, Midwest One Bank, and our supporting sponsor, DLR Group. It's our goal to help you do business better, and you're all the reason that we do these events, and this is a series designed to help you and your business do just that. Our Project 515 series of real estate and development-focused events dive into three specific subsections of the industry: retail, office, and of course, today we're going to be talking about housing. The series has a goal of illuminating future challenges and trends throughout the year, while also amplifying discussions with the region's key stakeholders that do business directly in those sectors and with business leaders that depend on the health and the vitality of the real estate industry, which, of course, so many businesses do and so many businesses in this community do. Coverage of the discussion today is going to appear both written and in video form. It's going to be integrated across all of our platforms, including print, our weekly CRE e-newsletter, and businessrecord.com, and of course our social platforms as well. We've got a great panel lined up for you to peer a little bit into the future, take a look and see what's in store for the housing sector in 2024 and beyond. But before we do, and we've got a lot to get to today, we want to introduce two of our sponsors that help make this series possible. So our first is presenting sponsor, Midwest One Bank. At Midwest One Bank, the community is at the heart of everything they do. And since 1934, the bank has embraced taking care of their customers in order to help their customers and communities succeed. Today, we've got a brief video from Devin Boyer. He's the Central Iowa Market President at Midwest One.
Hello, and welcome to the Project 515 series. I'm Devin Boyer, Central Iowa Market President for Midwest One Bank. We are so honored to be the presenting sponsor of this year's virtual event series focusing on real estate and development. At Midwest One, community is at the heart of everything we do. Since 1934, we have embraced taking care of our customers and those who should be, with our experienced banking teams and proactive approach to generate meaningful impact for our stakeholders. Midwest One Bank is committed to providing solutions and resources that will help you succeed. This commitment is one of the many reasons we are happy to support the Business Record's Project 515 series. On behalf of everyone at Midwest One Bank, thank you for having us, and please enjoy the event.
A big thank you to Midwest One for their sponsorship today, and of course for the entire series as well. Our next supporting sponsor is DLR Group, who has continued to be supporting the series. DLR is a leading integrated design firm located here in Des Moines with offices around the globe and more than 1,000 plus design professionals. Their promise is to elevate the human experience through design. I'm pleased to welcome Bo Johnson. He's the design leader and senior associate at DLR Group. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated. And thank you to the Business Record for putting on this event. Well, good afternoon. We're really grateful to be here. As he mentioned, my name is Bo Johnson. I'm the design leader at DLR Group, and I lead our workplace and mixed-use design teams in our offices in Des Moines, Lincoln, and Omaha. So while I may currently sit in Omaha, I am a Des Moines guy, grew up in Urbandale, Iowa State grad, go Cyclones. It is with great pleasure that I kick off today's discussion on home selling, buying, and construction. Whether Des Moines markets will see an uptick in apartment construction and the effect that high interest rates are having on our housing markets. For those of you who may not know DLR Group, we are a 100% employee-owned integrated design firm. We specialize in delivering architecture, engineering, interiors, and planning services. From the creation of community-centric construction, including institutions and mixed-use developments, to adaptive reuse of existing spaces such as housing and lifestyle hotels. If anyone's been to the Surety recently, that was one of our recent projects in Des Moines. So as Chris mentioned, our brand promise at DLR Group is clear: to elevate the human experience through design. Within the multifamily housing market, our talented design teams create spaces where people want to spend time. Nothing is more sustainable than a place people love to be. And at DLR Group, we're committed to a collaborative approach, actively listening to users and engaging with the community and housing advocates. We recognize that spatial requirements are ever evolving, responding to the unique needs of the intended user and the surrounding communities. Our goal is to elevate the role of residential spaces by crafting environments that evoke relaxation, inspiration, locale, comfort, safety, and togetherness. Each of our projects has its own unique story and adds value to its community. Whether that's buzzworthy public spaces incorporating local art or retail program that draws in the community, these housing projects create an ecosystem in which all needs of its residents are within their grasp. As we gather here today, I'm excited to hear the insights of our perspectives of our panelists regarding the evolving landscape of the housing market in our community. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Bo. Appreciate it. And thank you to both Midwest One and DLR Group for sponsoring the series this year. And both are on board to be with us again next year for 2024 to be able to continue these discussions, since the industry, of course, is always evolving and moving. So we're grateful for both of your support as we look into 2024. All right, we've only got about an hour here to go, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. There's no way we'll be able to cover it all, but I know we've got a great panel that Kathy Bolton has put together for us. Kathy is our senior staff writer who puts together a commercial real estate e-newsletter. She covers real estate and development, government, and also is going to be focusing in a lot more on housing in the future as 2024 takes over. Kathy is going to be leading the discussion today. I might chime in from time to time, but from here, Kathy, go ahead and take it away.
Well, first I want to thank everybody. Let me introduce everybody that's here. We've got Jackie Benson, who's a vice president and economist at Wells Fargo. Matt Daniels, who's director of operations at Origin Homes. Josh Doss, who's a senior associate at DLR Group. Abby Gilroy, the executive director of Neighborhood Development Corp. Erica Hansen, real estate agent who has Erica Hansen Real Estate, and she's the incoming president for the Des Moines Area Association of Realtors, and Glenn Lyons, who's the economic development director of the city of Knoxville. So thank you everybody for joining us today and taking time out of your busy days to be on our panel. So our opening question is this, and we're just going to go across and everybody answer it. Please use a word or phrase to describe today's residential real estate sector, and then explain why you're using that word. Abby, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, Kathy, to you and your staff for putting this on today. We appreciate the invite to be here. I think I would have to say creative. I say that because we all know there are a lot of aspects and things that go into development as a whole, not just housing, but all development. And there was a time where costs were kind of leveled out and rates were stable. Rents were on the rise, incentives weren't competitive, and that is no longer our environment. So we're all having to kind of team up and collaborate and get really creative in how to make these projects work. So that's what I've been noticing over this past year, and I see that probably happening into the future, or more partnerships and collaboration to bring these projects to fruition.
Thanks, Abby. Glenn.
Sure. We have substantially increased construction costs and interest rates, and those two things lead to declining affordability in housing. I think the rural communities are affected most. They're the most vulnerable because their average household incomes are less than the urban areas. And those challenges lead to the creative behavior that Abby was talking about.
Thanks, Glenn. Josh.
Well, thanks, Kathy, and thanks everybody for allowing us to be a sponsor and to be part of this today. As an architect and designer, I think I have a bit different perspective, being on the front end of projects and seeing what's coming down the pipeline. So I would say, from a multifamily perspective especially, that the market's going through a renaissance. The expectations of renters and the market conditions, which have changed since the pandemic and the rising interest rates, I think are really bringing about change to, investors to sharpen their pencils, to see growth and new development coming back as it kind of stalled out a little bit during the pandemic. So I think there's a lot of growth and opportunity that's being created in the housing market.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Matt.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. For me, it's thinking differently. We all know the housing market has changed, and these changes have created this environment that's really challenging everybody. So being able to adapt and pivot and embark on some new ventures, that's going to be really critical to our success. And then keeping that value-driven product and experience at the forefront for our clients. I mean, that is and will continue to be our mission moving forward.
Thank you. And do we have Erica here?
I think we had a technical glitch with Erica, so we'll give her a chance to get back in here in just a moment.
Jackie.
So I am an economist, and what that means is that I'm not directly involved in housing on the ground. However, I take more of a 30,000-foot view and analyze a bunch of data. So I think the word I would use is challenge, specifically speaking about the single family housing market. And that boils down to three things. It's high prices, high mortgage rates, and low supply.
Okay, and Erica, welcome back.
Sorry about that. I'm
No,
not sure what
that's
happened.
yeah, things happen. So we're using a word to describe today's residential real estate sector.
Yep. And I would say full of opportunity. This summer, since this summer, we've slowly been building up the inventory in the market. But with that, sale prices are still gradually increasing. So there's really a benefit to both buyers and sellers in the market today. So full of opportunity.
Great, thank you. So Jackie, let's go back to you. It's no secret that interest rates for home mortgages have more than doubled in the past couple years. In 2021, the rates for a 30-year fixed mortgage averaged around 3.1%. And today, Freddie Mac came out and said that they were averaging at 7.2%, which is the fifth week in a row that they've dropped. Sort of tell us a little bit of how you've seen from your vantage point, how the rise in rates have affected mortgage applications.
You're exactly right. We went from a 10-year period post-Great Recession of historically low mortgage rates, and they're at their highest level since 2001, 2000. So that has certainly challenged the market, like I said. How it's affected mortgage purchase applications. So ever since the Fed started increasing interest rates, which doesn't directly increase mortgage rates, but the two move together. Ever since that happened, we've seen mortgage applications steadily decline. Now there is some good news, and that's as mortgage rates have trended lower, specifically this month in November, mortgage applications have actually increased every week of the month. That said, we're still well below where we were before COVID and specifically before the Fed started raising rates.
Can I interject? When you say well below, are we saying 20% below before COVID, 30% below? What?
So I don't know that figure in terms of mortgage applications, but I do know that existing home sales, for example, is at its lowest level since 2010. Okay. New homes have been more resilient, and that's largely because builders have been able to offer incentives, price cuts, mortgage rate buydowns. But the housing market and housing demand in total is much weaker today than it used to be.
Okay. And then do you have any inkling on who's sort of getting pushed to the home buying sidelines?
So I would say affordability is a broad-based challenge that's really affecting everyone. So whether you're a current homeowner who can't afford to trade up from your 3% mortgage rate to a 7.5% rate, or you're a first-time home buyer that doesn't have the funds to enter the market, I think it's a pretty broad-based challenge.
Okay, thank you. So Erica, through October, it looks like from the association's data, 10,660 homes or so have been sold in the greater Des Moines area. That's about 17.5% fewer than in 2022. Are you seeing fewer buyers in the market than a year ago?
Well, fortunately, in answering that question, we are typically slower this time of year. So yes, however, what I am hearing from buyers that are out there looking right now, they're feeling less pressure from the market. The last few years, multiple offers in various price ranges. This year, or more recently this year, as the interest rate has gone up, we've seen buyers that got out of the market in 21 and 22 and have come back in, obviously higher interest rate, but they have maybe some more negotiation with the seller. They can actually do their due diligence, do inspections, get the seller to pay money towards closing costs and things like that. So yes, it has slowed down, but we're just not at the pace that we have been the last few years.
So is that a good thing for buyers that it's slowed down? I know the interest rates aren't a good thing, but the rest
right.
of it?
I mean, I think it is. It got crazy over the last few years. We had
you could write an offer 25,000 over list price and still not get it. You had buyers taking out inspection contingencies. And we have some of those buyers that have come back around, you know, maybe they bought in the fall of 2020 or the spring of 2021. They didn't do an inspection on the house because that was their way of getting that house. And then they turn around and sell it today. Inspection gets done on it. And, you know, it's just not always a good thing. So we want them to be able to do their due diligence in the contract and buying the homes.
Okay. So there's, Erica, there's over, as you probably know, 72 million millennials in the US. And for those of you who are trying to figure that out, that's people between 23 and 38. A recent US Census report showed that 63% of millennials in Iowa own homes, and that's the highest rate in the country. So what's the outlook for that next group of people, the Gen Zers who are in their mid-20s now?
Well, I think that we're fortunate here in Iowa. Iowa Finance Authority has a variety of lending programs for first-time home buyers and grants available for first-time home buyers. So I think that that's going to be a nice option for them as they enter the market. I would encourage any of the young generation to start saving up for down payment now. It's going to help them in the long run be able to put more down on that house, have the funds available to do repairs if they need to. And like Jackie said, affordability is still going to be an issue for those guys, as well as probably low inventory.
And then on the flip side, we're hearing that older people are staying in their houses longer rather than downsizing. Are we still seeing that in the market? And sort of what does that do for the supply of homes?
I do feel like here locally, we are maybe a little bit more exempt from that. I still have the older generation downsizing. I still have people moving into the area because their kids and grandkids want to live here. They're still making those moves. Honestly, I would say our biggest problem right now is people love their 3% interest rate. Like they love it so much, they don't want to move. That's probably our bigger hurdle right now that we have to overcome.
And do you have a way to overcome that?
Well, I'm sure you've all heard the date the rate, marry the house thing that, you know, we like to say that. And I mean, honestly, I bought a house last year, or I bought an investment property last year at 7%. I bought a house this year. So I mean, the right thing comes along. I had the 2.75 interest rate. Like I would just encourage you to do what's right for you and your family at this time. Hopefully, you know, we do see rates come down in 2024 like they're projecting.
Okay, thank you. Joss, we're going to kind of shift the conversation a bit. We're seeing in the Des Moines area an uptick of apartment construction, especially in the downtown, Waukee, Ankeny's. What are some of the amenities that you're seeing developers add to their projects to help them attract renters and compete in the marketplace?
Yeah, there seems to be, renewed focus on creating a sense of community and connections within the renters. And so expanding on the idea of wellness and connection to nature are some things that we're looking. The best amenity for the development side in the eyes of the developer is things that don't cost them anything. So connection to public space, to trails, bike, walking paths, etc. Those are great for the community, and also then the developer doesn't have to pay for those. So that's example of with the Gray Station Bridge Development Project, which we're currently collaborating with Hubble on. There's also having access to retail and food and beverage developments already adjacent to those developments are important. To have that kind of urban lifestyle. So we see again most projects they are looking for maybe a differentiator, more than just a golf simulator and, the movie theaters of old. We don't really see those anymore. So really creating a sense of community, making the spaces feel more sophisticated, feeling more hospitality centric spaces, and those connections to outdoors. We say, people want to live like they're on vacation now more than ever. And so having those service style amenities you might see in upscale resort properties or hotel projects, like valet trash, mail delivery to your door versus going to a mailroom, et cetera. Those kind of things, a resort style pool, Baja Ledge and infinity edges, private cabanas, those kind of things, so that people really feel like they're getting more and choosing that community for the lifestyle, not necessarily just because they can't afford a home.
Are there challenges associated with adding those types of amenities or offering them?
Yeah, so I think the overall size, the footprint, I think with the cost of construction and interest rates, I think developers are also trying to be very cognizant of that. The margins are slim on their bottom line too, just the same as, a homeowner. So I think making sure it's the right size, the right mix, that wild card amenity that's really going to drive residents to want to live there for that lifestyle are important. And so just getting all that to fit within their pro forma so they can still make a buck with the slimmer margins.
So what are some of the things that are being added as an amenity today that maybe weren't 5 or 10 years ago?
So I think, upscaling the pool is a big thing. So those outdoor spaces, we've done a couple of projects where we have like an outdoor private yoga terrace. So it's a place that people can connect to the sense of wellness. Other maybe interior spaces that are more spa-like, where you could have light therapy, salt cave type of amenities that you would see in a spa. Also treatment rooms, so they could bring in a masseuse on every Tuesday and Thursday or whatever as a service. So a lot of wellness, those kind of pieces are really something that's different. You always are going to have the club room, the fitness center, but I think trying to make it feel a little bit less institutional and more hospitality driven, make it feel like a living room space and a place where people want to connect and stay.
And then we have a proposal in downtown Des Moines to convert the Ruan 2 building from office to apartments, and the developers are proposing a rooftop, things on the rooftop, a dog run, seating, grilling. So what are some of the pros and cons of having rooftop amenities, especially in the downtown areas?
Yeah, I think that's something we've seen across the board, in Des Moines and across the Midwest and other locales that we're working, that a rooftop is something that everybody wants as kind of residents. So I think it helps drive residents to want to be there, to have that lifestyle. It's one of those things that can really be a huge differentiator. The cost is a concern of some of those spaces, being cognizant of the elements, wind, sun exposure to the elements are important considerations to make sure that those spaces, across the Midwest, the weather changes quite often. So making sure that you can use those spaces as long as possible. So having fans, heaters, things like that to extend the season. And then just, nobody's going to be there if everything's blowing away because of the wind. So thinking of that as important consideration as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Abby, so tell us a little bit about Neighborhood Development Corp and its mission.
Sure. Yeah. Neighborhood Development Corporation has been in Des Moines we're going on our 25th year this year. And we're a local nonprofit that's funded by the city of Des Moines and Polk County to go into our neighborhoods in Des Moines, in the Des Moines footprint, and do revitalization efforts through commercial real estate. So that may be rehabbing existing historic buildings, that may be assembling infill lots to do a new multifamily or mixed use type property. It's really just a lot of different things. And sometimes we are just helping other developers or small business owners in improving their spaces. We don't always have to be the developer, but we do want to see storefronts being filled. We want to see people out on the walking around the streets, going to get coffee and do these different experiences. And we want their businesses to be successful in the neighborhood. So that is what we focus on.
And what are 1 or 2 of the projects you're working on now?
Yeah, so we have a couple multifamily projects going on, some with some commercial space, mixed use. We have a potential mixed use here by Drake University on University Avenue. We're also working with, we're partnering with some developers, one on the south side, right at Park in Indianola. We're doing a workforce housing project there. We've partnered with a developer up here on Forest. We've got some land on Franklin Avenue that we'd like to do a workforce project on. And then, like Josh said, we just identified our first project where we feel we can do a workforce project, but really tie it into the community and other amenities that are already there. Our neighborhoods are incredible. We have little commercial nodes in each one. We just don't know it because some of them have been vacant for so long. And there are trails. We obviously know the trail system in Des Moines is one of the best. And it's really, how can we connect what we're doing, our bricks and mortar, to more so the community and things that our tenants would be able to have access to. So I was excited to hear him say that other people are doing this as well. I think our big focus is how can we not so much what our bricks and mortar looked like when it was done, but what did it do in the community? Are there people out walking around and interacting with each other, and are the businesses flourishing and viable? So I think that's really going to be a big focus of ours going forward.
So you talked about workforce housing. What is your description of it?
For me, it is true mixed income housing. I think the word workforce is very broad. It could be market rent, it can be above market rent, but we also have, there are jobs that are maybe a corporate job that's doing one level of the income spectrum, and then you also have somebody that is not, may have served you your coffee this morning. So, but they all need housing, and our employers, I think, employees, the first thing they think of is, where am I going to live? And if we don't have workforce housing of all incomes available, it's going to be very difficult to recruit people to work in Des Moines, but also retain them in Des Moines.
So what is the need in Des Moines for workforce housing?
Well,
I know there was a housing report out 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know if it's been updated.
Yeah, I do not know an actual need, so I don't want to speak to that. I would say that I think everyone is trying. I know there were over 600 units awarded in the last 2 years through the Workforce Housing Tax Credit Program through the state. So I know that developers are still interested in developing Des Moines. We're certainly going to see all of those units come online if they aren't. Some are already. So I think to keep a viable economic presence in Des Moines, we need that housing to continue to be developed. And it is challenging. We don't have 4-acre parcels just sitting out here ready for a building. It is assembling 4 or 5 properties. It's abatement, asbestos abatement, it's demo. There is so much money that goes into it before it can even start, that it can be a hindrance and maybe intimidating to some developers. But like I said, with that many applications coming through for units through the workforce program, it just leads me to believe that there's still an interest in developing in Des Moines.
Okay. And Matt, workforce housing isn't just needed in the metro areas, it's also needed in the rural areas. So tell us a little bit about Origin Homes and how it's meeting those needs.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Kathy. Origin Homes, for those that don't know, we specialize in rural housing across Iowa. So the focus for us is on the semi-custom, fully custom, and then affordable single-family housing. So our goal, although a big one, we're trying to build in all 99 counties of Iowa. And the day that we get to put that map on the board with all the pins in it, it's going to be an exciting one. So far in 2023, this year, we've had the opportunity to connect with, I would say, approximately 30 communities that are all in varying stages of development. 3 of those communities that we are working with directly this year and this upcoming year are going to be Gowrie, Manning, and Knoxville. And in those 3 communities, our goal is to build 5 homes in each community at an affordable price point that is really going to kind of be focusing more on that workforce housing. I know Glenn, we talk a lot, weekly emails and phone calls, but he's going to probably touch on this here in a little bit. The Veterans District, I mean, what a great land use case that is bringing housing and parks and community enhancements to kind of, an underutilized area. So, we were fortunate. We were a recipient of the workforce housing tax credits this year. And that's really going to help facilitate bringing more of these affordable homes to these communities. It's going to keep getting our sales price down. It's going to make it a little bit easier for us to travel and build these homes in these communities that really need it.
So what can rural communities do to attract more home builders?
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. To be honest with you, communities need a plan of action. They need buildable lots. And if we know that those lots are ready to be built on, we can accommodate and we can mobilize and we can get there. But a lot of times, community members will come to me and they say, what do we need to do? What's the first step? And we will review housing needs assessments. We'll look for incentives. We'll look for grants, not only for the builder, but for the buyer. So they kind of go hand in hand there. And then also understanding the local community, understanding the support, understanding the businesses, the employers, the city officials, the economic development groups. It's a collective push. It's a very large effort that it can't be, one person or one builder that says, okay, I'm going to do this. It's a big group effort in every community.
So is there a lot of home builders looking to build in rural communities, or is there a need for more home builders?
There's always going to be a need for more. I think Abby said it best that everybody's situation's different, right? So you have varying stages of housing that we need, and it's just going to be household to household. So there's always going to be room for growth. I think the last time I was fortunate to hear Debbie Durham speak, it was somewhere in the 25,000 homes that we're going to need in rural Iowa over the course of the next 10 years. It was something like that. So, finding those lots, being able to mobilize, understanding some of the costs associated with getting into those communities. I know that can seem scary to some folks, but I feel like my team and I, we've really mastered that, and we've got a good understanding of our communities when we get in and start these partnerships. And in small town Iowa, I don't know if any of you are from small town, but you want to have relationships, right? You want to be able to communicate and partner with local trades, local vendors, but it takes a little bit extra time. And I feel like our build times are doing great. We've actually seen them go pretty quick, thanks in large part to just our larger crews that we have that can go and get the work done.
So you talked about the need for lots in the rural communities. What are some of the other challenges you might face, a home builder might face in a rural community that they may not face in a Des Moines or a Pleasant Hill?
It's just kind of being able to navigate it a little bit. The city officials, you might be talking to the mayor, who is also the local vet, who's also, the VP of the bank might be the treasurer on the city council. So there's a lot of cross collaboration and people in the smaller communities that carry a lot of different roles. So sometimes the process can get slowed down a little bit because it's new, or it's a challenge that they haven't had to deal with. So they're looking for guidance, they're looking for help. And that's where I feel like we do a great job of accommodating.
So just tell us just briefly a little bit about what you're doing in Manning, because the pocket neighborhoods are intriguing to me.
Yeah, Manning's a great example of a community that had an action plan that was created in 2018 or 2020. And their goal was to build X amount of homes, I think it was 17, and grow their population. So they kind of have this public-private partnership that came to fruition to create the Stadium View neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, they're going to have approximately 16 traditional lots and 20 pocket neighborhood lots. Now, this pocket neighborhood, it's a little bit different than what we're used to seeing here, because the front porch of the house is actually going to face kind of a shared green space. So it's a community garden, it's a community gazebo, it's a community walking path. And it's really exciting to see. And it's a newer concept. I think they've done it in Grinnell. But the city's excited. Our city officials, are anxiously awaiting Dig Day in Manning, which will be coming up here shortly. But one thing I wanted to touch on our effort in Manning is timing is everything, right? They were looking for a builder, they were looking for a developer, and we are the rural builder. We are the division of Hubble Realty that is going to get out in the state, and we're going to make this happen. So we were excited with the opportunity to partner with them. In fact, we're wrapping up our second fully custom home right now in Manning. And so when you combine that effort of build on your lot, rural building with workforce housing, the next thing you know, we're going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 homes built in Manning in the course of a year.
That's great news. I bet the folks in Manning really are excited about that.
Yep.
Great. Thanks, Matt. So Glenn, Knoxville, like some other of the small communities, is working to address the shortage of housing in smaller Iowa communities. Tell us about the Veterans District project and why it is needed.
Sure. I mean, I think we begin with a history in Knoxville of having a shortage of land for new housing development. And that led to, we had more people commuting to work in Knoxville than leave to work elsewhere. So we knew there was pent-up demand for housing that we couldn't provide. More than half of the people working at Weiler, for example, don't live in the county. So when the VA became available to purchase, the county, Marion County, and the city of Knoxville decided to partner on a development project there because the cost of developing that project, demolishing and everything, 150 acres, was too great for any private land developer. So we created a TIF district. The county invested 11 million in demolishing 750,000 square feet of commercial space and ripping out the old obsolete infrastructure. And the city, acting as land developer, has invested 5.5 million in the first phase of the subdivision, and a 3-acre park with a splash pad and connecting trails. So the first phase is 34 lots. We finished that part of the subdivision in the park on Labor Day. We've sold 11 of those 34 lots. Origin has bought 5, Sage has bought 5, and we have 1 custom individual buying. And of the 11 lots, 9 are workforce housing. I call them starter homes, 3 bedrooms, 1,300 square feet. And 2 are custom homes that are larger. But we did the subdivision in a neo-urban style. My wife and I had built the pocket neighborhood, the cottages in Grinnell, and we sort of adapted what we learned from that to what we needed to do in Knoxville. So these are smaller lots. The garages are off the back, accessing a private public paved alley, and all the lots either face the park, Veterans Park, or Veterans Boulevard. And so we've integrated amenities and smaller lots with the workforce housing concept.
Okay, talk a little bit about the housing study you did and the kind of housing that was lacking and who you're trying to attract to the community.
Sure. Well, the county did a housing needs analysis in 2016, and they projected that we needed over the next 15 or 20 years to build 700 homes, and in all price points, in all housing types, and in all tenures. Nearly half of it's seniors because it's an aging population. We were averaging 5 single-family home starts a year. So there was no way we were going to make it. And that's because we didn't have any land. But 2 things happened. We had this opportunity to begin developing the 150 acres at the VA. And Kading came in and built a 155-unit market rental townhouse project for us. And so we're starting to catch up. Kading's finishing their project in the next couple of months, but it's fully leased.
And that's good news. So what's at stake if communities like Knoxville don't provide not just workforce housing, but housing in all the spectrums that are needed?
Well, I mean, you really have to redouble your efforts. So this year we were designated a thriving community for workforce housing. Developers that apply for those credits in Knoxville get extra points and are more likely to get them than others. But if we don't get the housing, we'll go back to the way we were before. We'll have land, but it won't be utilized. And we run the risk of not being able to expand our existing industries or attract new employers. The people who would normally move here, buy homes, rent houses and such, they'll keep commuting from the Cheritons and the Indianolas of the world.
Which means Knoxville and other communities won't grow, and then
right. I mean, we were holding our own before. We're thriving now. If we can't develop housing, we'll probably be holding our own. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Matt, same question. What's at stake if there's not, in your viewpoint, workforce housing or even housing in other price ranges in small Iowa communities?
Yeah, just to echo a little bit of what Glenn said, you might see some loss in population. You might see some houses sitting empty, nothing new on the market. you know, I'm originally from Waverly, but I grew up going to visit grandparents in Boxholm and Dayton and Creston and Ogden and small towns. You know, and I live in Cumming, right? It's another small town, but it's kind of near and dear to my heart and my team's heart. We're all from small towns, so we see the importance, we understand the impact, and we want the communities to make it, and some of them won't make it. You get sub 1,500 population, and that's when we start getting into real trouble. So losing your jobs, losing your employees, and some industries or small businesses that have set up home base in that community is, you know, it's going to deteriorate and it's going to go away. So, you know, everybody should have the opportunity to be able to own a home in the community that they want to live in. So, you know, with all of these small communities that we work with, we see varying different strategies that are in place that are in the works or underway, and a lot of them are making big changes in their communities. So as long as we can continue with our strategy moving into 2024, that's really the goal, to make a large impact in some of these areas.
So you said strategies. What's one strategy that sort of stands out to you that you think that just caught your attention and think it might work?
Well, the workforce housing initiative was great. I mean, that is allowing us to mobilize, and it's allowing us to get there. So that helps keep our costs down. But really getting into the community and understanding what their needs are because of those varying price points, and because we are flexible and we're able to adapt to our environment with our product. I think that's one of the main strategies, is that it's not going to be a one size fits all for every single community. It's going to be different.
Okay, thanks. So Abby, in the metro area, what happens if there's not enough workforce housing, both in the form of apartments and houses?
Yeah, I think, you know, Glenn and Matt touched on it, and I mentioned it earlier, and I think what they've said is absolutely true. There's this concern of losing employees and retaining population, but I think even more so is the opportunity and potential of losing certain employers. There's a lot of exhaustion on employees that are commuting day in and day out, which is resulting in turnover. And so not having the housing to support the employees that support employers, you could have a really, really bad situation in that the employers pull, and that could shut down certain areas of our neighborhoods in our city, but also some of the small towns that they're referring to. So I think it's really important to focus on having housing available. And I think it's important for the corporations to understand that they can have a role in this as well. And that all the developers in the cities, there's public and private partnerships going on all over. To kind of refer back to my comment on creativity, that's one of the things we're seeing, is how can the public and private sectors come together and get this housing in the markets to recruit and retain people in the city.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Oh,
What have
okay.
you seen examples across the country of employers stepping forward and helping, providing some things for housing?
I have seen and heard of, I have not been a part of, but partnerships that have happened with corporations and investors in going in and buying product that will set aside a certain percentage of units, or maybe the entire development, for their employees. So I've seen that, in that they become one of the investors. A lot of them don't want to own real estate, manage it, operate it, and I don't blame them. But I do think I have been hearing about those partnerships. Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So Jackie, what options are available for prospective home buyers who are just sort of on the cusp of being able to afford to buy a house?
So I think I mentioned this earlier, but to me, the most remarkable thing I've seen is it's about this creativity that y'all spoke of earlier. Builders have really they've stepped up their use of incentives. Every month there's a builder survey that asks about this, and over 60% of builders last month said they used incentives, price cuts, mortgage rate buy downs, etc., to, you know, help with affordability. So just to put like meat around this, what we've seen year over year, a resale, the average price of an existing home is up about 3% or so nationally. The price of a newly constructed home is down by over 16%. So that's quite a stark contrast that I think is helping a lot of people out.
Okay, cool. And then are you seeing adjustable rate mortgages? I know they were popular years ago. Are they coming back?
In a sense, yeah. So we have seen an increase in use of ARMs, adjustable rate mortgages. If you think about, in the end of 2021, it was about 3% of applications involved adjustable rate mortgages. Today, it's over 9%, closer to 10%. So it's more than triple, definitely substantial. However, if you think back when they were really popular, that was right before the housing bust. At that time, ARMs were about 36% of applications, and there was a lot of factors that were boosting the use of ARMs back then that no longer apply today.
Okay, thank you. And Josh, how have you seen apartment designs change to make them more affordable for renters?
It's tough, for the developer side, some projects to pencil out. I mean, with, the interest rates and financing and rising construction costs. So if it doesn't work for a developer, they're obviously not going to build the project. So right sizing those amenity spaces, like we talked about earlier, optimizing that efficiency within the overall building to make sure they're providing enough amenities within the building that's really driving what renters want, but not overbuilding. Pre-pandemic, there was a little bit of an amenity war for keeping up with the Joneses, who has the bigger, better club space, who has the bigger fitness. I think that has, come to kind of an end. And I think it's really about right sizing those things to make sure it's functional. It's what the renters want, what the market drives, but it's not more than that. Another thing that we are seeing is looking at the actual units themselves, making sure that the unit design is efficient and is a place where people want to live. What pre-pandemic could have been 1,000 square foot apartment, if we can design it in a clever way through problem solving and design and being intentional about it to make it 950 square foot, but it's still usable in the same way, that is going to decrease the per square foot rent cost, pack in maybe a couple more apartments in the overall project. So it's better for the developers. And then by, being smaller square footage, make those apartments more affordable. Finding the right segment in the market for developers, figuring out who their renter is and what the target is another thing to make sure they provide what the market demands, but not over providing. You have to balance it, spend the right money, create a vibrant community, and then that will cause renters to want to stay longer. And that turnover is going to affect the renters, the bottom line, and that's what creates a great housing market.
Okay, great, thanks. So Erica, you talked a little bit earlier that you're seeing more houses on the market. I think right now over 3,300 maybe, which is an uptick from earlier this year. Talk about average prices, what's on the market now, and are buyers able to pay that asking price?
Sorry, my screen froze for a minute. You talk about average.
Yeah, the average prices for houses right now and
Sure.
and
Yep. Right now the median sale price is right around 275,000, which still happens to be higher than last year. The median list price, however, in the market is quite a bit higher at 350,000.
And so asking prices are going up or down?
We're still seeing prices increase. Yes. I wouldn't say, I know that there's a perception probably that prices are declining. I think prices are stabilized right now. We just aren't seeing a dozen offers on a property. Like I said before, we aren't seeing buyers necessarily pay tens of thousands of dollars higher than the asking price like they did maybe in 2021 and 2022.
So what sort of price range are we missing? What's the greatest need right now?
That entry level, I would say, the market's probably pretty tight, 350,000 or below, where your first time home buyers are going to be, is where we're really lacking inventory. There's quite a bit of new construction out there for sale right now. if that's something that a buyer's interested in or can afford. We're seeing builders more creative in incentives that they're offering, as well as I would say this fall, I've probably seen more offers with buyers asking for a significant amount of closing costs to help them with the cost of buying down the rate. Most recently in the last few weeks, rates have come down a little bit, but earlier this fall, there was quite a bit of rate buy down going on in offers.
How are sellers responding to that request?
It takes some conversations because if their neighbor's house sold back in May still for $5,000 or $10,000 over and they had multiple offers, why not me? Well, those buyers likely back in May have already bought or they decided to rent. Something else that we are seeing from the creativity standpoint from builders is some of their inventory, if they're not selling it, they are turning around and renting it. So you may see some properties that are offered out there for sale and for rent because they have bills to pay too, and costs to build are, I'm sure that Matt can agree that cost to build still continues to increase.
So I think you mentioned this earlier, but is this a buyer's market now or a seller's market?
I'm going to say it's a pretty balanced and even market. It's still in the resale side of things. Your existing homes out there, we really do have a shortage of inventory out there. New construction in various segments of the market. People are still custom building homes, so it's not that has gone away. They're still building homes. They're still buying new construction. We just don't have as much in our established neighborhoods.
Okay, and then I'm looking here, we have a question from one of our viewers. Are lot prices holding firm for developers or are they coming down? I don't know if anybody can answer that.
I can comment on the rural pricing on some of those lots, but that's different than the metro. So I think you're seeing a little bit more negotiation happening around the metro. Not necessarily a clear-cut yes or no, they're going down, but there are more negotiations happening on lot pricing, especially if a builder is buying in bulk, and they're trying to scoop up, more than one lot at a time. When I work with the local community or the rural communities, a lot of them have incentives already in place that it might be a $15,000 lot that they'll give you $7,500 back at closing or something like that. So they do have some of those types of incentives in the outliers around the metro, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. Well, Chris, it's back to you now.
Thank you, Kathy. We've got just a few minutes left here, and we're going to give the panelists a chance to give you a final closing thought and a takeaway while they think about their final responses. Just a couple things to share with our audience. If you enjoyed today's programming and you want to dive deeper, today is really just a start. There's a number of ways that you can continue to connect with our team and with other business leaders in the community. Our next event is our Book of Lists unveiling. That's on January 4th. It's a free event at the Capitol Square. First big event of the year. Usually we have about 600 to 700 folks out there. Great opportunity to do some networking. Our legislative forecast event will be virtual. That's going to be on January 9th. And our economic forecast ticket sales are not open yet for that at the moment. Tables are available for corporate tables for that. That's going to be on January 24th at a new location out at the FFA Enrichment Center. In addition, in April, Business Record members received our annual real estate magazine. Kathy was integral in putting that together along with our entire team. Kathy and our entire team is hard at work on next year's edition, if you can believe that already. We're already thinking about April. So if you're interested in supporting the magazine, you can reach out directly to me, or you can view last year's magazine and request additional information at businessrecordarem.com/advertising. We'll throw that in the chat. Commercial Real Estate Weekly. I'm sure that's how you found out about today's event to begin with, but if not, and you're not signed up for that already, that's the best way to stay plugged into everything going on in the development community. So we'd encourage you to sign up for that free e-newsletter. It comes every Wednesday at businessrecord.com/sign up. And of course, if you have any story ideas that you think we should be covering, please reach out to Kathy or Michael Crum, who's going to be continuing to do more and more in the real estate space as well. Both are always looking for story ideas so that we can help share what's going on in the community. And if you have any feedback or are interested in leveraging conversations like this or any of our other platforms to tell your company's services, messages, sponsorships, of course, are available, you can reach out directly to me. So final takeaway, final question. We'll go around the horn on my screen. So Glenn, we're going to go ahead and start with you. Final takeaway.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. I mean, inflation is down to about 3.1%. We're seeing a situation where the mortgage rates are declining. The Fed doesn't look like they're going to raise rates. Eventually, they'll start to lower them slowly. So I think we're through the hurdles.
Thanks, Glenn. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we're all aware of the challenges that we're facing, and ultimately, I feel like the challenges are going to be opportunities. Opportunities for us is going to be to expand our outreach, continue our partnerships with our rural communities, and ultimately fill those housing gaps across the state. So we're going to take it one community at a time. And for me, it's thinking differently, right? Thinking differently so that we can create differently. And I think that's going to be at the forefront for everybody as we navigate into 2024.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Josh?
So I think, related to the multifamily market, that it'll continue to expand. We've talked about workforce and affordable housing. Incentives are going to still play a big role in that. Private student housing, something we haven't talked about today. But I think that's happening a lot across the Midwest, an expanding growth market. And I think you're still going to see the addition of more Class A properties in those prime locations in downtown and places like West Des Moines, Ankeny, those areas that are still in growth mode.
Great. Jackie?
So echoing the forward-looking theme here, yes, the housing market is under pressure and will likely remain under pressure as long as mortgage rates are elevated. However, I think there is upside growth potential. So we actually forecast mortgage rates, and we do expect them to trend lower over the next couple of years. So along with the increases in supply we're seeing, which is great for meeting current and future demand, I do think that there are some bright spots on the horizon for the housing market.
Great. Erica?
I think that in 2024, we will see a healthy real estate market here in the Des Moines metro. We're a year into this increased interest rate. It will start to feel a little bit more normal next year. And then on top of it, we have builders right now that don't have as many winter starts going into the ground as maybe they have the last few years. So that'll give them the opportunity to sell their inventory over the winter, which really could drive our market also come spring of next year.
All right. And Abby, you can close us out.
All right. Yeah, I too feel really positive about this next year. I'm a forever optimist. We all are, or we wouldn't be in this industry, that's for sure. But I think the biggest thing that has been so good for the industry is really just the awareness. All of our cities and counties and the state especially are working so hard to put incentives out there that are bringing our projects to fruition, helping us through these times of these hurdles like Glenn referred to. But yeah, we're seeing the rates drop, we're seeing partnerships and collaboration, and people are figuring it out. We will always get it done, and we will always figure it out. So I'm excited to see how we burst through this next year.
Well, I want to thank everybody here that's watching for attending. As a reminder, we're making this series free and available to the community thanks to the support of our sponsors, Midwest One and DLR Group. We too are a locally owned business and are working hard to continue growing, thriving, and supporting your businesses right here in the 515. So sponsorships, advertising, and memberships are what help make programs like this possible so we can elevate conversations around things like housing. If you're interested in helping support us, please feel free to reach out our direction. We can help get you connected with the right folks. Also, a big thank you to Kathy Bolton for once again putting together a fantastic group of panelists with great questions to help probe on some of the things that we need to be thinking about. Her work's not going to stop here. She's going to continue to poke at a number of these issues in our products as she heads into 2024 as well. And of course, a big thank you to our speakers. We're so grateful for your expertise and forecasting abilities. We know we put you on the spot and make you have to decide what the housing market's going to do in 2024, but we appreciate giving us your insight and giving us a little bit of a peek so people can do their best to try to forecast what's going to be happening in the future. Thank you again. My name is Chris Konetsky, and we're working hard every day on Project 515 to help help build and strengthen this community. So if our staff can ever be of any help to you and your efforts to help build you and your business, please feel free to reach out my way. Thanks again to everybody for joining today. Have a great holiday season, and we'll see you at our next event. Have a great afternoon.